The 2001 Zimbabwe Democracy and Recovery Act, ZIDERA, is a series of sanctions introduced by the United States Senate with the purpose of restoring order in the southern African country after state-sanctioned land invasions and human rights abuses. Over the last 2 decades, Zimbabwe's economy has gone through multiple meltdowns with unemployment at unprecedented levels. A group identifying itself as the Zimbabwe Anti-Sanctions Movement has labeled the sanctions illegal and humane. The movement recently filed papers at the Gauteng High Court asking it to declare U.S. sanctions against Zimbabwe unlawful, unconstitutional and invalid. I'm now joined in studio by Advocate Simba Chitando, who's representing the Zimbabwe Anti-Sanctions Movement. Advocate, very good evening. Who is the Zimbabwe Anti-Sanctions Movement?
Good evening. Thank you for having me on, and evening to your viewers. The Zimbabwe Anti-Sanctions Movement is a group of like-minded, patriotic Zimbabweans who have come together with their various body of expertise and skills to challenge the unlawful sanctions that the United States government have imposed on Zimbabwe, and they'll be doing so throughout the world, not just in South Africa, but in many other jurisdictions.
So I suppose the argument here is that the United States have violated international laws. What is it exactly that they've violated?
Thank you very much. The United States sanctions are unilateral, and by their very nature, they have not got the approval of the Security Council, of the General Assembly, which is required for imposing sanctions, and in that regard, they are illegal. They're unlawful. They violate all the essential principles of international law.
Well, something that we're experiencing currently, obviously, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine is sanctions firsthand, where the United States, in effect, is leading sanctions against Russia, and obviously a number of individuals from Russia. Now, how do you rate your chances when a superpower such as the United States, as we can see, has evidently decided to impose sanctions on Russia at their own free will? Does Zimbabwe, do you have a chance, do you think?
Well, that's a very good question. Several parts of the question, I'll answer them in the order you've raised them. Does our group have a chance? And I think you're referring to the legal action that we have instituted. We do, because it is a tried case in our view, where the United States government has infringed on international law by imposing sanctions on Zimbabwe, and insofar as the jurisdiction of South Africa is concerned, that might be something you want to discuss later, but we think we have a chance in challenging it because we think that we have the view that it is illegal. Insofar as the sanctions on Russia, what I've seen, without going into the merits of or the justifications, the motivations, the politics of what's going on in Eastern Europe at the moment, but what we have seen is unilateral sanctions that are affecting the whole world. Mm-hmm. I mean, just before I came here, we're doing some research, and I understand that Russia, it exports up to 20%, I think, of the world's wheat. They are one of the biggest exporters of sunflower oil, which we need for cooking. We all know that oil prices have gone.
30% of Europe's gas, actually.
Yes. That is also the big thing. That the gas is the big thing, but there are many others as well. Agriculture. So, we feel that, and we feel that sanctions are not the best way of resolving disputes. I'm happy that Ukraine and Russia are talking, and before I came here, I understand that there's a chance that there will be a deal. That's what Foreign Minister Lavrov and his counterpart from Ukraine were saying. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Advocate, let's talk about why the sanctions were imposed in the first instance, right? And just to read out a few of the issues, right? So the U.S. restricts Zimbabwe's access to international financial markets. In fact, the impact. But the law requires Zimbabwe to embark on a process of national reconciliation and to compensate victims of human rights abuses. Are some of the issues that have been stated by the U.S. Congress for imposing these sanctions. What work has been done to correct these anomalies? Because one would assume that if they've imposed sanctions for a reason, that there would be some form of correction before you reach out and say that these sanctions are illegal.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you've raised. The first thing that I would like to say is that the United States is not the United Nations, and they have to know and accept that they're not the police of the world. There have been several human rights violations, or allegations of those, for United States military intervention in Iraq that have been condemned even by the late Colin Powell, who led the charge at the United Nations.
Let's focus on Zimbabwe's issues and the issues that you're accused of. And obviously, because we have very little time, I mean, we go back to August 1st, 2018, when soldiers opened fire on innocent civilians. As many as 8 were killed. Has anybody been brought to account for this?
Okay, that's a very good point. I was about to answer it in the second part of my answer before we came in. We know that there's been, for that specific incident you've discussed, you just mentioned, there was a commission, the Motlanthe Commission. There was action that I mean, I'm not there, I'm not in Zimbabwe, I practice law here in South Africa, but I do know there was a Motlanthe Commission. And going back to...
That made recommendations.
Made recommendations,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Which, to the best of our knowledge, have not been implemented.
Well, like I said
this
before...
This is a matter of fact.
Yeah. I'm not the right person to talk about the implementation of the Motlanthe Commission.
The issue, Advocate, is that you are going to the United States, who have said, or you're suing the United States government,
yes,
which has said that we're imposing sanctions for a reason. And that reason is the issues that impact the average person on the street. So
you
human rights violations.
Absolutely. I want to answer this very crisply. You mentioned human rights violations. The first part is the United States cannot impose sanctions on anyone for allegations that are unproved in court for violation of human rights. They're the wrong party to be doing so. That's important. The next point that I'd like to make is that these sanctions you just mentioned earlier derive from 2001. What took place in 2001, which was your intro, was or just before that was the land issue and the land reform program. That issue has been put to bed now. The farm workers, the farm owners are going to be compensated. I think the farm workers as well. I'm not too sure exactly the details.
The irony of it is that
action has been taken to resolve that issue.
But they haven't been paid yet. There is an agreement that there will be
payments have been made.
That they will be paid.
No, that's incorrect. I have to correct you there. The payments have been made. There's a global amount. I think it's about 3.4 billion. I'm not sure exact number, but it's not a small number. It is obviously not going to take place overnight. It's a process, okay? People have to come up with their claims, something I've written about in the past. You have to assess the quantum of how much a particular farmer is going to be paid. But now we're going into the nuts and the bolts. But the most important thing is there is an agreement to resolve the issue that started the sanctions program. So, 1, they were wrong. 2, under the Second Republic, those issues have been resolved. They have. 8 people being shot. Let me finish the land the plane here. 8 people being shot dead anywhere in the world
by
is
soldiers.
Wrong. By soldiers, by law enforcement, is wrong. More people are shot dead in the United States of America over a weekend. Black Lives Matter. We've all seen the images. We all know about George Floyd. We all know about all the things that are taking place there. We have not had sanctions imposed on the United States of America for any of those incidents, which far exceeds 8.
Are you saying, Advocate,
Yes.
saying that it's because there are no sanctions imposed on the United States for human rights violations, it's okay for the Zimbabwean government to commit the same?
That's not what I said. I said that sanctions, I said that
well,
8 people...
Your comparison.
No, I didn't. What I said is 8 people being shot dead anywhere in the world is wrong, right? What happens in a situation where 8 people are shot dead anywhere in the world, there has to be a court process, which is why you have lawyers. You take the matters there. I mean, it happens in this country. More than 8 people are shot. I know this because I've been practicing for more than 13 years. 8 people are shot wrongfully by police. You sue the minister of police.
And then you talk about the Mhlante Commission that has come through and has made recommendations and found that those 8 individuals were shot illegally. And this happened 2 years ago. And there's been no restitution or no attempt to correct those issues. So how do you stand a chance against the U.S. government to lift those sanctions when the very issues that they initially imposed, the Zidera sanctions, are still active?
Well, I was in the middle of answering the question, and you have to allow me to land the plane, as it were. But the most important thing is, as I was saying before, the Zidera sanctions are illegal against the United Nations. We don't have to prove anything to the United States government. That is important. We have to follow the international laws. All right, that's very important. Otherwise, we will have a situation where countries throw sanctions at each other over exchange of sanctions that we've been seeing between Russia and the United States at the moment, which is unproductive. It doesn't help anybody. But I want to go back to what you were saying earlier when you said that I am saying that it's okay for anyone to be shot. I've said it before. It is not okay for 8 people to be shot dead in New York, 8 people to be shot dead in Johannesburg, or 8 people to be shot dead in Harare. What has to take place in those 3 jurisdictions is you follow the laws and the procedures, and when an award is made, that award is followed through. We had an incident in this country which everyone knows about called Marikana, where over 34 people were shot dead in a single day. I think it was a massacre. It was referred to as a massacre. Sanctions were not imposed on South Africa. But what happened is that there was a commission, similar to the Mhlante Commission that was established. It ran 4 years. You allowed due process to take place, which happened with Mhlante Commission. And then the people who are responsible for following that process go about in the case of the Mhlante Commission, implementing the outcomes of the
Advocate, I'm afraid we've run short of time, and I have to thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming into the studio. Advocate Simba Chitando, representing the Zimbabwe Anti-Sanctions Movement. So when we come